Welcome, everybody, to Episode 5 of the Thunder Craps Podcast. We are your hosts, forging through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your master of ceremonies, Josh Kaiser, and joining me today, the sixth Villano, Mr. Josh Addix.
I prefer being called the third Villano.
Well, you know, I'll keep that in mind for the future, because we know we got 4 and 5, but we don't know what happened to 3, and we don't know what happened to 6, but I like to believe that you were the 6th. And I can't forget the other man, the third man of our team, Mr. Kyle Flounder Hoagland.
Once again, I'm glad that you didn't give me a Stagger Lee Marshall reference for the 4th episode in a row. So, Rip Spicoli, the innovator of the Death Valley Driver. What's going on?
Well, it's try number 2. Of course, I muted myself for our first try of recording here. So, unlike Mr. Tony Schiavone, I am still working out this whole hosting 3-man podcast, apparently. But, you know, here we are. It's 1998. It's Thunder. I'm drinking Surge. I'm playing Final Fantasy VII. I'm really getting back into this whole 90s nostalgia act altogether to really get into the mindset that I need to be to help break down Thunder with you guys.
And I'm doing the exact opposite. I am probably doing everything that I would have done in 2018, which is enjoying this goddamn keto diet and double checking to make sure that I did everything with my taxes, since apparently I might have screwed them up. But
nothing like doing that 10 days too late. Right?
I was going to say.
Well, they extended the date, because when I filed them, I let them know that there was a couple of things that were not correct, and they gave me I think a 15-day grace, so it's fine.
Okay.
If Aaron R. Schuster was here, he would not give you that same leeway. So you're lucky it's just VK Wall Street, my friend.
I meant to say this earlier real quick when you were talking about Schiavone. Did you see that he's going back to announcing for
he announces for
Court
MLW.
Bowers?
Yep.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Or
it's always nice to see
I don't know if
good
it's
old Tony.
started yet. I enjoy him. I've really grown to enjoy him.
Yeah, and, you know, you're going to enjoy him here tonight. We're in Beaumont, Texas. He opens up by saying there's a storm brewing there. We are 17 days away from the greatest night in the history of the sport. So never one for lack of hyperbole when it came to Mr. Schiavone, but you're right.
I really don't remember SuperBrawl 98, but I mean, maybe it was the greatest spectacle of all time. I have no idea. Or the most important, biggest night in wrestling. I probably beg to differ.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but in the meantime, we've got Tony, we've got Heenan, and we got Lee Marshall. At least 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Mr. Meatloaf would say. In the commentary booth, they're discussing, upcoming matches for the night. We've got, Chris Benoit versus DDP for the United States title. That was made last week on Thunder, so we've had a week to look forward to that. The Steiner brothers are going to be in action versus some NWO members, and of course they are continuing to push that rift or potential rift and dissension amongst Rick and Scott. And then we move into our first replay of the night, which of course is from Nitro, and it's furthering that dissension between Rick and Scott. Rick is basically angry again that Scott didn't tag him in. Scott, of course, got the win, and the two of them are fighting. Rick wants tagged in. Scott says, "Hey, I won." And Ted DiBiase, trying to play the good manager, try to mediate between the two of them. And while most of us got out of that segment that Rick and Scott are having, sibling disagreements. Haddix, you noticed that Scott Steiner's dick was well shown.
All I know
is that what you noticed? The only thing you noticed?
Well, I mean, the sibling rivalry. The sibling rivalry is in full effect, but I mean, the dude had like the tiniest. What is that called? A singlet? Is that the wrestling? What that wrestling thing is called, or whatever? Yep. Whatever the hell it's called. And it was like he had the biggest wedgie. And he had the biggest bulge ever. I'm like, dude, you could wear something that's maybe a little. I might prefer the jeans.
Well, I don't think Scott Steiner ever does jeans, but once again, if you're wearing those tight jeans, it also doesn't leave much to the imagination.
Well, you know what? For a guy who used a lot of steroids, maybe the rumors of steroid use shrinking the old meat and potatoes isn't quite so. Maybe it's an old wives' tale.
The old cash and prizes, or he stuffed it like they said Kurt Hennig used to do.
That wouldn't surprise me for Scott Steiner to stuff his package.
Yeah, me either.
Let's move into our opening match of the night. We've got the chairman of WCW, La Parka, coming out here versus Hugh Morris. And a couple of things here. You guys both called out the fact that La Parka might be doing some gimmick infringement on Hogan with his entrance.
Dude, it was that one part where I noticed more of the part where he kind of did like the ear thing, where he like things his arm and like puts it on his ear. Like that was the part that I was like, wow, that seems real close to Hogan.
Well, at least his music is not being blocked or to copyright, so that way we can actually see him rocking out to his own music and it actually lines up.
So what you're saying, Haddix, is La Parka might actually be Hulk Hogan because you never see the two of them in the ring at the same time.
Dude, I'm telling you, he doesn't want to be on Thunder, so he just dresses up as La Parka.
Dude, look it up. Have they ever been in the ring together ever in their lives?
That's a good point. That's a great point.
It is a great point. I have to admit, we're talking about music, theme music. Anyone else make it think that Hugh Morris's music sounded like the Wonder Woman theme? Just me.
I'll be the person that says, oh, you're talking about like the Wonder Woman theme of the recent movie.
From the recent movie, yeah. Like maybe Wonder Woman, like Hans Zimmer listened to Hugh Morris's theme back in the day and was like, that is going to be my inspiration for Wonder Woman.
He was a big Hugh Morris fan.
I mean, we all were. I mean, that's a given. But no, I did not notice. I did not personally notice it. I know. I mean, he's. I think you and I, guys, at this point, have been used to his music being like the dungeon music. So,
right.
This is. But once again, this is face Hugh Morris.
Yeah, which to your point, Hans Zimmer might be not be the only one behind Hugh Morris. The crowd, which by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, the crowd was very hot in this show. They were really into it, very loud. Probably the best crowd we've had, I think, in any Thunder yet. But you're right, Kyle. They're much behind Hugh Morris, which was weird for me because I'm not used to him being the face. Of these two, I would have said La Parka's probably going to be the face of this match because people like his dancing and chair antics, and Hugh Morris has always just been kind of a heel, a villain of sorts. But he's not. He's working like the face here, and this match is over pretty quickly. Hugh Morris, of course, is going to win with the moonsault or the no laughing matter. I gave us a 1 3/4. I thought the match was really short, but it was fine for what it was. Haddix, what did you think about it?
I gave it a 2. I also thought that it was an average match. The only thing I'm not real familiar with Hugh Morris, so I was kind of impressed. They kept saying he was 300 pounds, which I don't know if he's actually 300 pounds, but
he's probably pushing it.
He's gonna be pretty close. Yeah,
he's a big dude. He's a big cat. But he was moving around really well, and like that, his finisher, or I don't know if that's his actual finisher or whatever, but
it is.
I mean, that's tough to pull off, especially for a big dude like that. That was so it bumped my scoring up to 2. I probably would have rated it a little lower if it wasn't for that.
I gave it a solid 2. It was a squash match. I mean, it was very quick. I don't think there was anything about it that we're gonna write home about. But yes, I always have to be reminded actually how good. I believe his real name is Bill DeMott.
Bill DeMott, yeah.
Yeah, and he's and Haddix, I don't know if you really noticed, but he used to train a lot of when like in the early 2000s. I think he only got released maybe not that long ago from WWE, but he was like a talent trainer kind of guy. He did a lot of the Tough Enoughs. Like he was a guy that did a lot of the training during that time. But yeah, I don't think this really did anything for Hugh Morris. I don't remember him getting much of a push. So, but I think the match in itself I've always liked him in the ring. So I gave it 2 stars.
After the match, Hugh Morris is going to get hit by a chair, and La Parka is going to get on that chair, do some yoga poses and some dancing to try to get back some of his heat.
And here's the thing: the crowd actually kind of turned on Hugh Morris after he got hit by a chair and started posing on the chair. The crowd loved La Parka, and they were chanting La Parka's name.
Yeah.
So I feel
maybe
it's a very turncoat crowd.
After this, we're going to get a very 90s promo here for Goldberg. It was basically spears and jackhammers. This was strange. This was strange to me. I'm not used to Goldberg having like a vignette, like a video package like this, but it was a little promo here. And you can definitely see that they're starting to push this whole undefeated Goldberg kind of character. So,
Yeah, I think this is the first video kind of promo I've ever seen of Goldberg, and it really wasn't much to it. There was no narrator. It was just him doing his 2 moves of doom, and
it felt like I was watching a commercial for like a '90s energy drink or something like that.
Right.
And then Goldberg's going to be in our next match against who Tony Schiavone called a tough test, one of the most powerful men in our sports, Jim Powers. So
that's a lot of things to say in front of then saying Jim Powers.
It's high praise from Schiavone. We get our first sign of the night, and it's Goldberg is the man. So Beaumont.
So that's where Heenan got it. That's where Heenan got the idea.
Yeah. This match was basically a couple more of those submission takedowns, which Haddix, I know that you didn't know Goldberg did that kind of stuff, and here we are 2 weeks in a row that he's doing it. And then Spear Jackhammer. This match was over very quick. I gave it a 1.5 stars. Even for a Goldberg match, I thought this was pretty short and uneventful. But he was able to take care of that tough test, so good for you, Bill. Hoagie, what'd you think about it?
Goldberg match. If it's status quo, it's a 1.5 stars for me.
Haddix?
I gave it a 1.5 as well. Nothing else to add.
They need to make up their goddamn minds about this. Now I'm just getting mad that they're just jumping back and forth.
And I just realized I muted myself, so... So we got our WCW Saturday Night promo, and Kyle, we kind of went back to our original one here. A little closer.
And they need to make up their minds about this. This is killing me that they keep changing it back and forth from like Terminator's arm to actual
like
video of just
footage.
It's just
stuff.
Stock video. Well, it's not
even
it's
from
not Saturday Night because
you're right. It's not from Saturday Night. It's just pictures or videos of the wrestlers showcased this week, and for that we got Glacier versus the Cat, so that martial arts division. Kyle, we got a match there. Goldberg is going to get a match against Disco Inferno. Raven and Chris Benoit, and of course Scott Hudson and Mike Tenay will be calling all the action. So a pretty decent card, I guess, for Saturday night.
I was actually kind of surprised. I wasn't expecting Raven and Chris Benoit. Usually, like you would think, like Goldberg would be whoever he's fighting.
I mean, Raven and Chris Benoit was just a pay-per-view match, so it's kind of interesting that they're going to have them on Saturday night now.
Yeah, I agree.
After this, we're going to get Kidman, who is joined by like pretty much the entire flock, versus Juventud Guerrera. And of course, Lodi's out there, so we got some Lodi signs. The first one is Kidman World Tour 1998. And then on the backside, it's Kidman the Real Luchador, which of course was a sign from last week. So Lodi apparently does not get rid of his signs. He just recycles them the following week. So good for Lodi, you know.
Hey, is there no music, or did they just cut it out for copyright reasons or something?
The flock never came out to music.
Yeah, that's probably more the flock.
I think Saturn was the only one, and it's because
Saturn's got the sirens. It's fucking irritating. Yeah. We're gonna get our second crowd sign of the night, and this one says, "Hey Raven, flock you." So, nice little pun there by the Beaumont crowd. And we're also gonna get a couple more signs. Sting fears Lodi, which is interesting. And then, of course, get the flock out of here. So a lot of the flock puns.
Yeah.
The match itself was pretty good. It might be my match of the night. At one point, it was kind of, good luchador match or, high flying match between Juvi and Kidman here. I really like the spot where Juvi went for a head scissors takedown, but Kidman kind of caught him and held him up and then sort of kind of face planted him down. And my favorite spot though was the Juventud. Kidman was on the apron and Juvi kind of did that Frankensteiner from the top to pull him down and throw him into Lodi. So all kind of outside.
That almost was botched too. He almost screwed that up.
It was a dangerous spot, but it was a pretty entertaining spot, I thought. Juvi is going to do a running Juvi driver. He's going to get ready to go for the 450 splash. Of course, Lodi's going to interfere. He'll take a drop kick for his troubles. That's going to lead to Kidman doing a bulldog and following up with the shooting star press. That's your winner, Kidman. I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I thought it was a pretty good match, all things considered. And even though there was a little bit of flock interference, we actually had a a non-DQ finish in a flock match, so good for them. Hoagie, what'd you think about it?
I always try to wonder if Raven's rules only apply to Raven but not his flock members. I always thought that whenever those guys got a match.
Yeah, I think Raven has his own rules. It's part of his contract.
Okay, so it doesn't actually extend to his members. Okay,
correct.
I gave this a 2 3/4 stars as well. I was actually kind of surprised that Kidman got this win, especially considering that Hoovy is like a very fresh, recent former cruiserweight
champ. What, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago for us? Yeah,
something like that. Still a really good match nonetheless. I just didn't know that they were already kind of giving Kidman this kind of like the go ahead to say, hey, if you keep impressing us, like you're gonna move up in the ranks pretty quickly.
Yeah, they definitely gave him a nice nod here anyways. Haddix, what do you think about it?
I gave it 2.5 stars. There was a couple missed spots, but I feel like when you have a match like this, that's going to happen, I guess, sometimes, you know what I mean? Just because it's so high impact and all that. But I thought it was pretty good, too. It might be the match of the night. And I am I'm not familiar with Kidman like you guys are, but I am looking forward to kind of seeing him in the future because he definitely looks good.
Yeah, he becomes one of my favorites, I think, during this era as we go forward. I always loved the matches he was in, and I thought the shooting star press was such a cool finisher for the time.
I thought it was also funny that Lee Marshall was like, that Kidman calls his move the shooting star press. I'm pretty sure the shooting star press existed way before Kidman did it. I don't think he coined the term, the shooting star press. And I also was curious, like, when did they start giving the names for these moves? Because I know Hoovy did his Hoovy driver, and they always call it the Hoovy driver, but this one they called it like a running pile driver.
Running pile driver, yeah. I'm not sure.
And then they called it this.
That may just be the case of not having Mike Tenay there to like let everybody know what everything's called.
Maybe, because I know that the even flow is not called the even flow yet. I know that Kidman's move is not called a 7-year itch yet. I'm just curious who's the first guy that calls it? And yeah, you're right. It's probably Tenay.
Speaking of Tenay, he's up next with DDP. DDP is going to come out and discuss his main event match with Benoit. Basically says he starts out. I thought he kind of started out weak in this promo. A little. He almost. If it wasn't DDP, I would say he sounded nervous and he kind of like stuttered through something about competition. But eventually, he kind of said he regains his composure. I thought and kind of finishes the promo solid, basically saying that when Benoit's jacked to the moon, he's one of the toughest sons of bitches out there, and that's when he wants to face him. He wants people to see it happen and wants to compete against the very best. So pretty standard face versus face promo here. But
did either of you think it was weird that he didn't come out with the belt? He's got a championship match tonight and he doesn't even have the belt on him.
It is a little weird, except Kyle and I are used to Sting never coming out with the United States title, so I guess it's just one of those things.
And also sometimes just for like a quick promo like thing with Tenay, I can see that's the time where maybe you can get away with not having the title because you don't need to bring it. You don't need to bring it to a promo unless you're going to gloat with it and show it off and be whatever.
If I was the United States champion, I'd be fucking flashing that thing all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, then you're not Sting. All right.
That is true. Up next, we got Silver King and Haddix, your fellow brethren, Villano 4 and 5, going up against Super Calo, Lizmark Jr., and Chavo Guerrero Jr. And this is where we're going to get our fifth sign of the night. Of course, this is the classic TBS sign where you put the first letter of each of the acronym to spell out the channel it's on, and you get Thunder and Beaumont is just too sweet. That seems like way too many words for a TBS acronym, but maybe it's just me.
You know what?
Being creative.
I don't think it was the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's no. I thought it was fine. I don't know why it's even on here. There was no problem with the sign.
I just thought there's too many words. Too many words for me. But whatever. Haddix, what are your thoughts on good old Silver King's gimmick here now that you've seen him for a couple weeks?
I'll say so. I thought he was just odd when we saw him either last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. But I was looking at him tonight and I realized he's a Hispanic. I assume Mexican, He's a Mexican cowboy, and he looks like somebody's like 45-year-old dad. So
he definitely as Mike Tenay said, don't let that dad bod fool you, man. He's quite the agile man.
And he's not bad. He really isn't that bad. It's just a very weird gimmick, which happens a lot these days. But
to be fair, what are the Villanos? What is Super Colo?
Yeah, that's true.
What are most of the gimmicks in this match, other than that they're just, Mexicans? Some of them.
What does Ciclope stand for? And second of all, God forbid Haddix, you actually, like, if you want to know more about Silver King, you could at least wiki him. He's from Mexico, all right?
I don't want to know more about him, though. That's the problem.
Fair enough. This match, it's pretty much what you expect from a Lucha Libre style match. There's a lot of non-tags because people are sliding in and out of the ring. And, some flip moves here and there. For this match, I thought it was an okay six-man tag, but I thought it got a little chaotic, and I thought at times it was a little sloppy.
Hold on real quick on your note there of tagging in and out. Is that rule they said legit? That you don't have to tag in a Lucha match?
That is the rule that they said. That's the style Lucha Libre means. Anytime an opponent is thrown out of the ring, one of his partners can enter the ring without a tag.
Yeah,
that's a legitimate thing.
That is a legitimate WCW Lucha Libre rule.
That's what I thought. The reason why he said that was because Heenan called it out. It was like, "Do you know who the legal man is, Tony?" And Tony was like,
"Oh, he
Lucha
said it
Libre
before
style."
That. He said it like 4 or 5 times throughout the match. Like he would kind of keep bringing it to people's attention.
So I actually went ahead and used a credible source called Wikipedia, and the rules say the rules of Lucha Libre are similar to American singles matches. They are won by pinning to the mat, count of 3, submissions. Using the ropes for leverage is illegal. Once opponent must release any holds that are put on the disqualifications. A rule unique applies during tag team matches, which when the legal wrestler of a team touches the floor outside the ring, a teammate may enter the ring to take his place as a legal competitor.
There you have it.
So wow, well done, Tony Schiavone. I apologize.
Yeah. So there you go.
He does win the pony.
Some of the chaos. Kyle, why don't you discuss the quote that you loved that took place during this match too?
So it was during exactly this part where after Tony says, "Oh, it's Lucha Libre style, rules," and then Heenan goes, "Well, Tony, you win the pony." This particular quote is an old adage from back in the day for wrestling. It's a story that I actually heard quite a while back from our boy James E. Cornette, where he tells a story about like a smaller federation or like a smaller promotion back in the territorial days, where in order to get people to come to the show, the booker or the guy who was in charge said, "Hey, if you buy a ticket, we'll put you in a raffle to win a pony." And this guy owned horses, and so he had ponies to give away. So the day of the show, it's packed. Everybody's there for the matches. I assume a lot of people are also there to get this pony. And so at the end of the night, he pulls out the winner, and the guy goes, and the winner of the pony is, "Well, would you look at that? It's my son Blue. My son Blue won the pony." So it's just the whole thing where like you're faking people to get it, to come into your show with chances to win something when really it was rigged to begin with, and the end result only benefited the promoter. So that's what the "you win the pony" is kind of what that means.
Oh, good to know. So between that and the Lucha Libre rules, that's all we really need to discuss with this match because there's not much else to say.
Good night, everybody.
Chavo is going to hit a tornado DDT, but Mickey J isn't going to see it because he's distracted. Psychosis is going to come in out of nowhere, drop a top rope leg drop onto Chavo, and flip him. So Chavo is pinned, and there's your winners. Silver King and the Villanos win this match. I give it 2 stars. It was just a okay Lucha Libre 6-man tag match. What'd you guys think?
I gave it 1 3/4 stars. I thought it was a little too
quarters.
You like that? Hey, I'm trying to fit in with you guys. All right. I thought it was a little too hectic, but I think that's what happens when you have a 6-man tag. And as we found out, you don't necessarily have to tag in. So it was an okay match. I'm sure there might be some reason, but I have no idea why Psychosis interfered at the end. Maybe there was a storyline going on Nitro or something. I have absolutely no idea, but that seemed very random.
I gave this 2.5. It was a little slow at times. I think it's because Villano 9s I call it when they're together. I call them the Vallano 9. No big deal, guys. But they're not exactly
it's fucking clever, bro.
Thanks. They're not exactly the speediest of the luchadors. In fact, I'm not sure how old they are, but they always look like they're both 50.
So is that why they're with Silver King? Is Silver King and the Vallanos? Are they just like the middle-aged dads of the Lucha Libre division?
Well, I mean, here's the thing about it. He's younger than Triple H. He's only 50.
Silver King?
Silver King. He's 50. I just looked when I was looking him up. He's 50 years old right now. So in '98, he really wasn't that old at all.
He just looked like it.
Yeah, he just
Part
looked horrible.
Man.
Yeah, his gimmick is to look terrible. But good offense overall for the most part. It was an interesting finish with the interference. Apparently, they're pushing some sort of storyline. There was a reason for Psychosis to be there. They didn't have time to discuss it. I wish they did. A couple missed spots, but also there were a lot of rough sells. I think Super Clo took a clothesline from one of the Vallanos, and he basically flipped out of his mind and landed on top of his head. That was kind of a cringe. But once again, hey, Lucha Libre style, bro. Roadhouse.
We spent a lot of time on that match. I just gotta admit, but it was an important one apparently to us. After this, we're gonna get
in the annals of WCW. It is.
Yeah, right, exactly. After this, we are going to get the commentary booth discussing just Hogan and Macho Man at Nitro and the dysfunction. We're going to get our second replay of the night, which, of course, is what we saw last week on Thunder, which is a replay from Nitro 2 weeks ago, where Macho Man is basically saying that Hogan's nothing without the belt, and he has, shown the dissension between him and the rest of the NWO, followed up with later in the night when Sting comes in, locks on the Scorpion Deathlock, and Hogan and Hall basically kind of taunt him and let him suffer, him being Macho Man. And then we fast forward to this past Monday on Nitro. Hogan is going to pull Savage off a pin on Sting, which is going to lead to Savage getting thrown out of the ring. Luger's going to rack him and attack Savage. Meanwhile, Sting and Hogan kind of awkwardly staring at, with Sting stands behind Hogan for a long period of time until eventually Hogan kind of turns around and starts running away. And that's your replay there, just furthering that Hogan Macho NWO dissension. Then we're going to get another replay, which was, of course, the replay we had earlier in the night from Nitro with Scott Steiner's Big Dick, and of course the dissension between him and Rick.
Over the size of his penis, apparently. by the way you packaged that, my God, there are so many puns.
So many puns. That is going to lead to our next match, of course. The Steiner brothers, joined by Ted DiBiase, going up against Buff Bagwell and Conan, who's joined by Scott Norton, Scott Hall, Dusty Rhodes, and Vincent. So like half the NWO coming out. They said it was a way to show that there's some solidarity between the NWO here,
and some TV time.
Yeah. And Dusty's going to actually kick Lee Marshall off the commentary. And I kind of loved this idea, is Dusty getting on there basically saying that the WCW announcing team is anti-NWO propaganda and there's too much bias, and he needs to come in there and kind of set some things straight and basically be a voice of the NWO, which I really like that idea. What I also liked was Heenan basically sucking up to Dusty the entire time he was there, just kind of being a slimy guy.
Which Tony's got to be pissed about, because I know that when Dusty cut his thing, he shit all over Tony.
Oh yeah, he did, and that's what makes it. It's a funny dynamic there, and Tony does call him out later. Basically said he's a coward, but I did love that. And while Dusty was doing that, we got a nice angle of seeing the rest of the NWO sneaking up the entrance ramp and
I didn't know what was going on, but I'm pretty sure we weren't supposed to see that, because it just seemed weird that they looked like little underwear fucking gnomes, just like hiding behind the set, waiting to do something.
Yeah, it was very strange, but it did make me laugh. Of course, then the Steiners are going to walk out. They're going to get attacked by the NWO, but they're going to quickly turn the tables back in their favor, and they get in the ring, and they're basically old school Scott and Rick. Scott's kind of sitting on Rick's on all fours. Scott's over him. They're doing classic Steiner brother action. They look like they're just best of buds now, and it looks like all's forgiven. And it's about at this time I see the sixth sign of the night, and this is the NWO acronym: Nerds, Wussies, and Old Men. So Beaumont's really throwing the hammer down here tonight.
Yeah, they are.
This match is another one that ends pretty quickly and kind of awkwardly because there's a disqualification, but I'm not exactly sure when they call it.
They called it when Scott Hall tried to get in the ring, and Rick laid him out before he could. Which normally in WCW, that's not a cause for a DQ because for one, Rick is not the legal man at this point. It's Scott, and so Rick was just clearing house with Scott. Scott Hall tried to get in. Rick clears him out too, and apparently that was enough to call for the bell.
And it is going to be a DQ win for the Steiners. I gave this match a 1.5. I didn't like anything about it. It felt chaotic. I didn't like how it ended. And I also didn't think, they do a little bit afterwards, which we'll talk about here in a second with Rick and Scott, but I didn't think it was good storytelling during the match. Hoagie, do you agree with me on that?
I do. This is like the first match that I feel like they didn't really do a good job with the progression with Scott. Ultimately probably becoming a singles wrestler and a heel. It just seemed too calm and inconsequential. And I know we're going to talk more about what actually happens, but it's one of those things where it was easily quelled, and the issue, the issue was explained. It seemed like, but Scott was still upset even after it was like, no, this is what happened, man. And it was like Scott was so upset. I would have been much happier if the screw up that happened that kind of got Scott and Rick at almost to blows. I wish it almost did go to blows, and I wish Scott would have even given them a chance to try to explain it. Like he just gets too hot about it and just leaves in a huff. I think that would have been a better one. But the match itself was a wash. I agree. It wasn't really much to it. Maybe I did give it higher rating than I did, but at least it's one of the very few matches of the night where I feel like at least they're trying to push the storyline a little bit.
Haddix, what about you?
I was gonna say I gave it 2.25 just for that purpose alone. The match was whatever, and I do think it's weird that he gets so mad at him for running into his back when there's like 100 NWO members running around.
Yeah,
he wouldn't think it was an accident. You know what I mean?
It was very strange because that's what happens is Rick's gonna have him, or Scott's gonna have one of them on his shoulders, and Hall's gonna push Rick off the top rope into Scott. Yeah, Scott had Conan on his shoulders. And he's going to blame him for it. Scott's going to blame Rick for going into him. But, yeah, it just seemed too chaotic. And after how well they were getting along at the beginning of the match, it just seemed silly to me. I think they could have done a better job of telling that story. But
I do agree with Hoagie. It was one of the few matches that week by week has progressive storyline. So that's why I gave it a little bit higher rating.
Fair enough. After this, we're going to get Marty Jannetty versus Raven. Which Tony Schiavone says was a rematch from not too long ago. It was last week. That's how not too long ago. We literally watched this match last week on Thunder.
Give Tony some time, all right? Dusty had just left. He's having a rough day. And did you also see as soon as he left, Heenan said I'm glad he's gone after he finally left, and that was kind of funny.
Heenan was masterful. Heenan has been fantastic, I think, since we started watching this again. Just really, it's vintage Heenan as far as I'm concerned. It's great stuff. But since the flock's out, we're going to get another Lodi sign, and this one says, I can beat Jannetty. This leads to Marty Jannetty basically beating the shit out of Lodi before the match starts. And he's dead. I think Lodi died because it comes back about 10 minutes into this match. They cut to an angle, and you can see Lodi just laying on the ground still where he left him. And I don't know about you guys, I cracked up when I saw that.
Dude, he got paid. He got paid to do it.
I just imagine Lodi laying on the ground there for 10 minutes, waiting until somebody gives him the cue that he can get up.
You think they actually did that on purpose, or do you think he was just laying there?
Oh, I'm sure it was on. I
don't think cared enough. I don't think creative cared.
Probably not. We are going to see our seventh.
Lodi did whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah. Everybody did what they wanted to do in WCW. We get our seventh crowd sign of the night. It says Jannetty's cleaning house. And at that moment I saw that, he was tossed out of the ring. So good timing there. And they refer to, as they're talking about Raven, they're talking about how he's got a tongue piercing, and he's got piercings and other tattoos and stuff. And Schiavone keeps saying he's one of the most bizarre men to ever step into a ring because of those tongue piercings. If that's how he feels about that, I can only imagine what he would have felt if Goldust was a character on their television, because he's far more bizarre than tongue piercings. Of course, Raven's rules are in full effect here, and there's one spot I wanted to talk about in this match, it's after Jannetty takes a chair shot, and he goes to just do a snapmare, and Jannetty must not have heard the call that Raven was going to give him a snapmare takedown, because he doesn't. He just kind of like grabs him by the head and just sort of falls over, and it looked really bad. And commentary starts to say like, snapmare takedown. Oh, but Jannetty doesn't go with it, so they start saying, well, he must still be knocked out from the chair shot. He doesn't know where he's at. He probably is still really, really out of it, dead weight kind of thing. I thought they played it off very well, given the botch spot there. And the match is eventually going to end. Jannetty's going to go for his rocker dropper finisher, but it's going to get reversed into the DDT. I give it 2.5 stars. Raven won cleanly, all things considered, which kind of surprised me. And it was a fine match between the two of them. Haddix, what'd you think?
I gave it a 2.25. Again, thought it was an all right match, rematch of last week. I've really grown to like Marty Jannetty, which I know he's done a lot in the past, but I really wish he had some type of better storyline or better gimmick going on right now, because his colorful tights and him not doing anything.
And his doomsday music.
Unfortunately, Jannetty's best stories are with Michaels, the Rockers, and all that, and anything post Michaels and him kind of just fell apart because
he basically just jobs every week. I mean, he puts on a good match and then loses.
Right,
that's kind of what it seems like.
He's a good enhancement talent.
He's a very good enhancement talent. Yep.
Yeah.
I gave this 2 3/4. This is a little bit better the star than I gave the 2.5 last week. I did say that I would have rated the match last week a little bit higher if Marty had sold the DDT a little bit better, and this time he did. He actually, he got.
I agree.
Spiked.
It looked much better this week.
Yep. So and the match was overall better than last week, but not by much. But there's no real feud between these two, so I really didn't see the need for a rematch. So I actually I think I probably would have given this 3 stars had this had been the first match between the two. I feel like the rematch, second week in a row on Thunder. I mean, I don't think that maybe it helps Raven a little bit looking good 2 weeks in a row. But as far as telling a story, it really didn't tell any.
After this, we're going to get another promo of the night. This time it's for the Giant. It's going to show some it's like a little promo vignette of him doing some choke slams, owning some dudes, and then it's going to end with some somber replays of basically Kevin Nash dropping him on his neck at Sold Out, and it's very, you could tell it's sort of trying to play hard on that injury and how serious it is to the Giant getting dropped on his neck. It's very somber. And as the promo's entering, you hear Disco Fever. It was a bad transition. I just started laughing because it was like you had this serious moment.
Why did they even show that?
Well, right afterwards, as Disco's coming out for his match, they are going to talk. They're going to update you on the Giant's condition, which I think they should have done first before they transitioned into Disco's entrance, but they didn't. So while Disco's coming out, they're basically saying he had some damage to his vertebrae and a mild concussion, and they don't know how long he's going to be out. But I think that was their way of saying, like, here's what happened to the Giant. This is why you aren't seeing him on TV right now. There is an injury behind it. But I don't think the production and timing was off, and I think they could have handled that situation better.
It would have been like if I was trying to tell you, Haddix, that like someone that you really loved was like being life flighted to the hospital, terrible accident, bleeding. But during that whole thing, while like I'm telling you this, "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees is playing in the background, like blaring. You could barely hear it or hear me over the sound of that. That's kind of how it was. I was like, really, guys, you guys couldn't wait for the jubilant Disco Fever music until after giving us all the bad news about the Giant.
Yeah, it was bad timing there. So we are going to get a Disco Inferno versus Saturn match. And you remember what Tony Schiavone, his ringing endorsement of Jim Powers earlier being, one of the most powerful men in wrestling. Well, Disco Inferno, Tony said he was a fine television champion.
Are you starting to think that maybe Tony is like the kind of like the kiss of death, where if he's giving somebody like the stamp of approval, then clearly he's there to enhance the talent?
Well, it's funny is Tony is the guy who's going to sell SuperBrawl as the greatest night in the history of our sport, and he's going to then talk about Jim Powers being one of the most powerful men in the industry, and then he comes out and says Disco Inferno was a fine television champion. Like that's like the most okayest of okay compliments you can give somebody. But that said, Disco, once again, he's hitting his Stone Cold Stunner. as Saturn missed a top rope leg drop, which did turn into the stunner. Haddix, you always appreciate the way that they fall when they miss their leg drops.
Because they always jump up and grab their butt cheeks or their hamstrings, and it looks like they're like trying to hold a shit from coming out, and it like makes me laugh every time.
So he's gonna hold that shit in, and it's gonna turn into a chart buster. Disco's gonna win this match. Nope, he's not, because Kidman's gonna take Saturn's leg and put it on the rope. And then this match takes a turn for the weird, I thought. Kidman sort of interferes a little bit here and there. At one point, he pushes Saturn on top of Disco, and Disco's laying on his stomach. So Saturn is on top of him, but like on top of his back. And it wasn't just me, right? Like, you heard the ref start to count, right?
He started to count, and you can hear Saturn even go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" He said to the ref, "I'm like, you're an idiot. Why would you even try to do that?" I think the problem. Yeah, I think the whole problem was, I think that's more Saturn's fault, because I think what was supposed to happen, but this is my only guess, was that Kidman was going to push him onto his back and then almost wake Saturn up to realize, oh, I'm in the perfect position for my finisher.
Yes, I agree with you there.
So but then he like put him in the rings of Saturn so slowly, like he took his sweet time with it.
It was almost like, and maybe it's almost one of those things I got to go back and watch. Maybe Saturn got knocked out during this match and was like not all with it or something.
I don't know. He reacted pretty quickly when he saw the ref trying to count.
Maybe he just had real bad diarrhea and he couldn't concentrate.
Yeah, dude.
He was wearing jeans, so it might be hard to see the squirt, you know.
So he is going to lock on the ring to Saturn. Disco's going to tap. I gave this 2.25 star. It's probably I'm probably being way too kind with that rating after the more we talk about it and how bad it was. And Hoagie, I think you'd agree with me there that it's probably worse than I even rated it.
Yeah, I didn't hold back. I gave this 1.5 stars. Match went on for way too long. This was the longest match. I know we haven't gone through every match. This match went for 10 minutes. There was actually a decent amount of bad botched spots. I really hate it when outside interference is done right in the eye line of a referee. These are things that I noticed. Like when Kidman grabbed Saturn's leg to put it on the rope to break the count, it was straight down the barrel of looking at the face. And I don't know the name of the name of the ref. He looks like he's 10 years old. I forgot what that guy's name is. But it's like, and then Kidman does it, and then like slowly walks back and climbs over the railing. And it's like the ref never even saw any of that. Like, okay. And then the whole like Kidman pushing Saturn onto Disco, that whole exchange just totally just drained the energy out of this whole match.
I actually gave it a 2.5 stars, and I think the reason I did was kind of some of the stuff Hoagie said. This was actually a full-length match, what felt like a full-length match anyway, and it was better than I thought. I thought they were going to come out here, wrestle for like a minute. The Flock was going to interfere. It was going to be over. So at least it was a match. I feel like so many matches on Thunder end the same way, which is DQ, interference, something. So
around, yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, now mind you, there was some of it in the match, but at least it ended as a match, and it wasn't just completely worthless. So I did give it 2.5 stars.
After the match, Saturn's not going to release that of the rings of Saturn, and that's going to cause Booker T to come out and basically stop the attack, furthering that story with Booker T and Saturn's feud. After this, we're going to get Mike Tenay back out here, and he's going to be back with Nick Patrick, who's going to be discussing, of course, everything that's going on. You know, he put his name back in, out there to referee the rematch between Hogan and Sting at SuperBrawl. And he basically polls the crowd and says, hey, you guys had a chance to review the footage. Did Nick Patrick make the right call? And the crowd disagrees with him, and he says the announcers have brainwashed him. And also, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, this dude's talking in third person now.
He turned into The Rock, man.
He did. All of a sudden, he's like, you know what? I cut a good promo last week. Now Nick Patrick's going to keep talking like Nick Patrick. And he says 4 nights from tonight, you're going to see, on Monday Night Show, you're going to see Nick Patrick in full refereeing gear. He was wearing full refereeing gear when he came out for this promo. So,
which is weird considering he's been out of commission, like not working for the last like 3.5-4 weeks, and yet he still wears his outfit as his normal gear.
He should be wearing like jeans and a t-shirt right now, but apparently he's a very professional kind of guy.
Well, I mean, unless you're Kidman, and that's what you wear when you wrestle.
It's true. They basically says he's never going to get his suspension or anything tried in court because J.J. Dillon knows better, so he should be reinstated as soon as next week. Overall, the promo, I don't know if you guys agree or not, it was weaker than last week's promo. He definitely peaked, I think, last week.
Yeah, his best days are behind him.
I agree.
Yeah. After this, we got our 9th sign of the night. It's the Adidas. Of course, if you remember the Korn song, All Day I Dream About Sex, this one is All Day I Dream About Sting. So this might be my favorite sign of the night, to be honest.
Was it at least a woman holding the sign, or was it a guy?
It was a woman. So
okay.
There is that. And then we get our promo for movies for guys who like movies. And I have totally forgot that this was a thing on TBS, and it just made me like, I don't know, it was one of those things.
That was a swift kick in the gut of nostalgia. I totally forgot about that.
That was one of those things
it was like, oh, yeah. No, this was like, my whole brain completely removed guys who like movies for guys who like movies.
Yeah, this one blew me away. They're showing Blues Brothers, and I'm like, man, I kind of miss movies for guys who like movies. That whole thing. It was a fun little set program.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't think I ever actually watched movies for guys who like movies, but because I was such an avid wrestling guy, I saw all the promos and was like, oh, that seems interesting. Never saw it, but I knew what it was.
Right. And then that leads the commentary team to discuss what their favorite movie is. Heenan's going to say it's either Heidi or Bridges of Madison County. So, classic Heenan. Haddix, I know you're going to love the next segment that followed up here because Scott Hall, joined by Louis Spicolli, and Louis is going to come out carrying all 4 tag titles. This is the current real WCW tag team titles, and then also the fake ones that Hall's been carrying around. Louis got them all. He's kind of struggling carrying all of them. Scott's going to get on the microphone here. He's basically going to say he still doesn't understand why he doesn't have a world title match at SuperBrawl because, of course, he won World War III, which I'm glad they're not letting that go yet so far. And then he says that, the Outsiders pride themselves on being champions and basically says, Steiners, if you guys want a tag title match, come get it on Monday night. That felt a little weird to me that they would do that like that because I feel like heels aren't typically, especially those guys aren't typically the ones out there like just saying, hey, if you guys want a shot at my titles, come get them. But
he must have saw DDP do it and thought he wanted to be as cool as Diamond Dallas Page.
I guess. And then Jim Neidhart's going to come out to wrestle Hall, but Hall's going to say, hey, Spicoli, you got this one. And Spicoli's going to wrestle the match instead. And they call him Stooge Spicoli, but they kind of stuttered. They struggled really hard saying Spicoli on the commentary team. And Haddix, what did you think about Spicoli coming out here in a wrestling singlet for this match?
Dude, first off, it was like it wasn't supposed to be a planned match with him, yet he's in his full attire.
Hey, you know what? He's always ready. That's
handy. You know what I mean? But I was a little upset that this wasn't a 15-20 minute match.
So now let's get something figured out here. So is it the reason why he was wearing swishy pants and a turn inside out black T-shirt was that he was so new to the place he just didn't even have wrestling gear from WCW, so he wore like what was in his gym bag for the first 2 weeks, and now he has an outfit to wear.
But his outfit is literally just a classic wrestling gear. Like it's nothing special.
Does it say like Spicoli or like
No, it looked like it was like just standard black.
Yeah.
It was like if you created a wrestler with a singlet in a video game. That's what you get when you get like Spicoli is the default wrestling character right now. The match itself, Haddix, does not go 15 to 20 minutes. It goes 15 to 20 seconds. Jim Neidhart's going to strangle Spicoli at some point with some foreign object, and then Hall's going to attack him, anvil from behind. That's going to lead to a quick DQ finish. I gave this a star. It was just a lame, very fast, over before it started kind of match. Kind of pointless from the match end of things. Haddix, what did you think about your boy Spicoli?
5 stars. Match of the night. Match of probably Thunder overall. But no, it was a 1. It was pointless, and I don't know why was everyone and their mom coming out at the end of this match.
I don't know. We'll talk about that here in a second after Hoagie gives his rating because it does get pretty chaotic.
When I looked at your notes, Haddix, I thought you said -5 instead of 5, but I gave it a star also. I hate thinking Scott Hall is going to wrestle and you get fucking Louis Spicoli, okay? My favorite wrestler of all time, and you give me fucking Spicoli. Also, I also found it very weird that Anvil felt the necessity to use a foreign object.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. I thought it was very strange that part.
What's even stranger, or maybe not, because all those guys are faces on the commentary. They didn't seem to care that Anvil was cheating to win.
They didn't care one bit. I guess anytime it's done against NWO, that's just sort of
I was gonna say
they're getting what they deserve.
Hey, Spicoli's not an NWO member, all right?
Well, he's an honorary member. It is worth noting because I don't know whether we'll see Spicoli next week, but if we do, that'll be Spicoli's final Thunder. He's going to die 10 days from tonight's show.
Well, what way to bring this fucking show down a little bit.
He basically had been fighting addiction for a while, got clean, and then he relapsed because his mom was dying of cancer. So,
or maybe he relapsed because he got in an angle with fucking Scott Hall.
I hope this
if you're working on getting your shit back together, why would you be like, what would be a good idea? Let's get you a good mentor. Let's put you with Scott Hall.
Hey, you know what? Maybe Scott was clean here. You don't know that. But so if it is, I gotta say, I know we started joking with Spicoli when he first showed up with our first episode of Thunder, but I've really grown to kind of enjoy his character on this, and I wish he didn't pass because I'm very curious to see where it went and progress from here. And there may be, there's an alternate timeline out there somewhere where Spicoli is one of my favorite wrestlers of the Attitude Era.
He becomes like the Mikey Ripwreck of like wrestling or something like that, where like just some like just complete jobber that actually becomes very popular and over with the crowd for being a jobber.
But alas, that's not going to be the case. And Haddix, what you were referring to, of course, with the post-match shenanigans here, we're going to have British Bulldog's going to show up. Apparently, he is now here. The commentary team didn't seem all that excited to see him, so it led me to believe this is not his debut. He's coming out to help save Neidhart from the attack. He's going to do a running power slam to Spicoli, and then out comes Mongo McMichael, who all of a sudden he attacks Bulldog. Apparently, him and Bulldog having a feud on Nitro. And then Anvil and Bulldog are going to double clothesline Mongo out of the ring, and Mongo's going to say, "Now you're in it too, brother," in reference to Anvil. So Mongo's on the warpath, Kyle. Look out.
And yes, Davey Boy Smith rejoined WCW pretty much a couple weeks after the Montreal screw job. So he's been back for a little while.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's actually been on TV because I know he came shortly after the screw job, but he's been hurt, and they paid him a lower contract to basically rest up and heal up, and then he may have just made his return debut on Nitro, but I'm not positive on that. And then we're going to move to our main event, and what they've been doing every week now is pyros go off like crazy before the match starts, and Heenan says, "We're at war," and then says, "We're live from Iran," which I feel is like something you just can't say these days if it was happening in 2018. Of course, this is our United States title match. DDP going to be defending it against Chris Benoit. Commentary team lets us know that the Steiner brothers have accepted that tag title challenge from Hall for Monday night, so we got that to look forward to this coming Monday on Nitro. And it was about this time I looked at the clock. We have less than 8 minutes left on this run of Thunder, which leads me to believe that this potential great match between DDP and Benoit is not going to be a good one. And we cut to commercial right before the two start the match. And when it comes back, Shivani mentions, he says, "It's been very odd. These two have been at a stare down for a couple of minutes. Mickey J's called for the bell a couple of times, and they still haven't started anything. It's very strange." And I thought, no, it's not strange at all because you guys have been on a commercial break. They're not going to start the match before they come back from commercial. The two kind of start out, and you can tell how bad the commentary team wants to call for Diamond Cutter because he goes for a snapmare takedown, and they're like, "The Diamond Cutter!" Oh, no, just a snapmare takedown.
That's not fair. That's not fair, though, because I agree. One thing, if you have a move like the Diamond Cutter or the Stunner, the Chartbuster, I feel like the snapmare should be removed from your repertoire because, honestly, a snapmare is harder to do than your finisher to pull to actually point. Technically do. So like if you do a snapmare, it's like just drop a Diamond Cutter. You already got him in the spot. Just do it.
Unless they're sitting down and you're doing one of those like snapmare. Yeah, I mean I see where you're coming from. So maybe he should take it out. You should talk to Diamond of Dallas about that, Kyle.
Oh well.
He's gonna get caught in the crossface, but of course he's right by the rope, so it's a quick break there. And did you guys notice how smoky this match was because all the pyros had gone off? Like, it felt like they were fighting in a haze.
Or in Iran.
Dude, this is a war.
DDP is going to hit the DDT, and it's about this point Schiavone goes, "Who was that? Who ran around the ring?" And I had to rewind twice to see what he was talking about, because then he was like, "Oh, maybe I was mistaken." So you do see Lodi kind of running around the outside of the ring.
He's alive.
I'm not sure if Schiavone was supposed to call that or not, because nobody else talks about it, and he kind of was like, "Oh, well, let's just I don't know what that was." Needless to say, of course, Lodi is going to interfere. He's going to take a diamond cutter. Sick Boy's going to hit a drop kick on Page. Out comes Raven, and then finally the bell rings by Mickey J. So there's a certain level of interference that referees in WCW allow before they finally call for the bell. I gave this 2 stars. It had potential. I really wanted to see this match from start to finish. But yet again, 5 episodes, 5 Thunders, 5 main events, 5 fucking disqualifications. I'm so angry. I'm so over the DQ finishes here on Thunder. What do you guys think?
I gave it 2 3/4. I thought it was a solid match. I agree. I wish it could have gone longer. Shitty finish yet again.
I gave it 2 1/4. I love it when you talk about DDP, Kaiser, just because I always say, hopefully, that you'll say Kaiman Dutter, but you barely pick yourself up after every single time you say it. One day you'll do it, and I'll share. Overall, except for the stare down at the beginning, it was good pacing. But yeah, I was the same way with you, Kaiser. When I saw what the runtime of the rest of the show was and saw it was like 7 minutes, I already was kind of uninterested in this match, because a match like this, it's for the second most important title in the company. It's 2 guys that are one guy is on a roll, the other guy is the champion, one of the most over guys in the company. It needs to be longer than 7 minutes. You gave Disco Inferno and Saturn 10 minutes, for fuck's sake, and once again another DQ finish. So, and you don't even get a Blizzard for it.
Yeah, unfortunately. So.
Thanks.
After the match, there's going to be diamond cutters handed out to the entire flock, pretty much. The ring's going to get emptied. Benoit is seething. He is angry. He is not happy that his title match was ended in disqualification. He feels just like I did watching this 5th fucking disqualification finish on Thunder.
He should have known it was going to happen. He's in the main event of Thunder. He's like, fuck, I'm not going to get out of this with a clean victory, am I?
But he might get a clean victory this Saturday night, and he'll get his revenge on Raven and that flock because they're wrestling on Saturday night. So maybe this was a story just to push the Benoit-Raven feud into Saturday night. That is your Thunder. Hoagie, what'd you think?
I mean, at this point, Scott Hall is the banner waver of Thunder at this point. You kind of pepper in a little bit of Diamond Dallas Page. The star power of Thunder definitely dwindled, and dwindled really fast. Not much in terms of story happened in this episode. We got a little bit of Scott Steiner, and I guess I kind of like the whole Dusty thing, but it really is a tiny blip on the radar as far as the rest of the show. So overall, I wasn't very impressed.
What about you? Yeah,
I wasn't very impressed either. It definitely seems to be lacking, and I'm even okay with less superstars, but my big problem is I honestly think in the past 5 weeks we could have sat here and picked the winner of every one of these matches, because like nothing, it's either a DQ or it's the person who's over wins.
So you're going to tell me you knew that Silver King and the Villanos were going to win their match tonight?
Maybe that one I wouldn't have known, because none of it mattered. So, but like it just seems there's no excitement really. There's no, I don't know. There's no good storytelling going on, and that's what bums me out the most.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree. This is one of the, I think, worst Nitros we've watched. I don't know if I want to say it is the worst,
well, especially if it's Thunder.
I was gonna say we're not watching Nitro, so.
But it's one of the worst Thunders we've seen, if not the worst. Like you guys said, you got Scott Hall, and then there's a kind of a drop off there. There's no Giant because he's hurt. Nash is gone. Hogan's not here. Bischoff's not here. Sting's not here.
Flexi,
Luger's
Lexi,
not
Sting,
here.
and Macho.
Savage isn't here. I mean, all those guys are not here. And this couple weeks in a row, and I get it's your B show now, but you're only 5 weeks into the B show. You'd think that you'd have some of those guys. And then when you do put Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Benoit, who are probably one of the more premier talents on the show here, you put them in a spot where they could have a great main event. It could really do well for you, and you ended in a disqualification. I just hate it. I'm praying and waiting for the first match, that main event match, that actually ends without a disqualification. So hopefully it's next week. And
the problem I had with it too is that if you all you need to do is make DDP and Benoit match into a legitimate match where it meant something, and Thunder becomes must-watch wrestling again.
I agree.
Like must-see TV, and they couldn't deliver.
Well, Thunder might not be much must-watch TV yet, but this podcast is must-listen. And if you haven't subscribed to us, go out there. I'm sure we're on Google Play and iTunes by this point. You can check us out on Twitter at Thundercraps. And, of course, you can always find us at thundercraps.com for all of our social media, past episodes, all that. And we'll be right back here next week for our February 12th, 1998 editions of Thunder. It's the 6th episode. And I'm just excited as we're getting closer and closer to the greatest night in the history of our sport, SuperBrawl 1998. For Volano 6 and Flounder, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you guys next time on Thundercraps Podcast.
Adios.
In the words of Scott Hudson, good night.